Why wait to earn the degree you deserve? You have the experience, you have the knowledge. Now's the time to get the credit for the work you've done and earn the recognition you deserve by starting your comeback at Purdue Global. It's time to earn a degree you'll be proud of, a degree that employers will respect. It's never too late. Never too late to come back stronger and move forward in your career. Start your comeback today at purdueglobal.edu. Purdue's online university for working adults.
Shopping for humans is hard. Shopping for your dog is easy thanks to Bark. Every month, we deliver toys and treats just for your dog. Whether it's fun plush or tough toys for heavy chewers, we spoil all the dogs. Subscribe now and get a free upgrade at barkbox.com/iHeart.
Episode 131, Why You Need a Budget.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And we are so excited to have Jesse Mecham from You Need a Budget on the show with us today. And this is kind of like a fangirl moment for so many people in our community that love YNAB. If you've never heard of the app You Need a Budget, Jesse founded it, and it has a cult following, unlike any financial tech app or anything in personal finance that I've seen.
I can't tell you, since we've started this podcast, how many people have asked me, have you heard about YNAB? You're going to have YNAB on the show? You should get YNAB to sponsor you. Okay, you're obsessed with YNAB.
Yeah. If you're passionate about financial independence or Dave Ramsey, you will understand that there is a subsect of people that are equally excited about YNAB. So if you're unfamiliar, you're about to get familiar in this episode.
You'll be using the acronym by the time we're done.
Exactly. And because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you use an acronym for everything?
It makes it so much shorter to talk.
It's great. First, our sponsors.
Frugal Friends Workbook. Whether you're new to budgeting or trying to reach a big financial goal and you need something to motivate you, you will definitely enjoy the Frugal Friends Workbook created by yours truly. Boop, boop. It's a digital workbook with 6 week-long challenges that'll help you save money, simplify your life, improve money conversations, and so much more. It is over 60 pages and can be completed on your own, but it is created to be gone through in pairs or a small group. So that's why every purchase comes with 2 downloads. It's like a buy one, get one free. We love those. BOGO.
BOGO.
So you can share it or split the cost. Head on over to frugalfriendspodcast.com/workbook to learn more and use the code Taco Bell. That's right. TACOBELL, all one word, to get $10 off the regular price.
Yes. And today's episode should be probably brought to you by acronyms, but it's actually brought to you by budgeting with spreadsheets. Trying to calculate stuff but don't have a calculator or phone? Spreadsheets are here for you. Record all the stuff, have multiple sheets in one doc, like one for every month, and go crazy with those sums, girl. Like, just put all of those sums. That's the only one I can think about right now, but you could do so many math things in there. So many math things. Budgeting with spreadsheets. Be a lady in the streets, but a freak in the spreadsheets. Saw that on a shirt once.
That felt risky.
Not as risky as our first idea. I'm not even going to talk about that. That was idea 2, Jill.
Yeah, I budget with spreadsheets. We'll see what Jesse has to say about that.
Yeah. I don't use spreadsheets, but I also don't use YNAB, so I'm very interested to see what Jesse has to say. Our last episode on budgeting was on minimalist budgeting, which is what kind of both of us do, and that was episode 36. So if you're looking for a minimalist budgeting style, you can listen to that episode. And then we are going to be talking about the 4 rules for successful budgeting. And even if you're not a YNAB user, I think you're going to get a lot out of these rules. They can be taken with any budgeting app or method, and it's going to be fun.
Do it.
Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yes.
Yeah, we're so thrilled to talk with you and hear just all of your wisdom and insight about budgeting. As we said when we weren't recording yet, you have quite a cult following. And I cannot tell you, we're about 2 years into this Frugal Friends podcast. And I have had so many people, when I tell them about my podcast, immediately jump to, have you heard of YNAB?
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
So I have. So I've heard of it. And so now I'm so thrilled to have you on. We are really excited about getting into what you call the 4 rules for successful budgeting. I think that we can't talk enough about budgeting. When we think we've moved beyond it, we've got to come back and revisit it. So we want to hear from you, how you approach it, what your ideas are on this, and just kind of give us a general layout with what budgeting looks like, how to do it successfully. So your first one is give every dollar a job. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the first rule is, well, the other 3 rules that we'll get to are all kind of derivatives of that rule. So this is the rule, if there were just one. And essentially what we're trying to do is just introduce the idea of trade-offs for people right away out of the gate. It's something that people are less familiar with doing once they become an adult. So kids are really good at trade-offs. They're really good at saying, like, I don't have money for this, so I can't buy it, but I do want this, so I won't buy that other thing. But adults, we tend to just kind of think we can buy everything. We don't confront the idea of, if I do this, I maybe can't do that. And so a zero-based budget, which is exactly what rule 1 is, it's just the idea of, only money you have on hand. How much do you want to give toward rent, toward, bills, toward a vacation, whatever it may be. But you want to make sure that you recognize that there's a finite amount of money and that you're just prioritizing. We want to be proactive with what our money should do and not reactive and kind of lamenting about what it did. That's pretty fruitless. So that's the idea, is introducing trade-offs, and with that scarcity. We actually want you to feel like money has run out, because it really has. And we want you to get used to the idea of your priorities kind of being fleshed out in an environment where the money is finite. So part of rule 1 is just giving every dollar a job, just straight up on a piece of paper. You don't have to use fancy software. Just, here are all the jobs I want my money to do. And then here's how much money I have on hand right now. Not here's how much I'll earn, not in a couple of days, not even in tomorrow I'm going to be paid, but money on hand only. And then when new money comes in, you just repeat that step again. And you start giving that money jobs, but don't fall into the trap of projecting what the money will be, because then you're not dealing with finite resources anymore. You can forecast yourself right out of a scarcity situation. So that's kind of rule 1. We've talked about it for about 15 years, but that's it in 2 minutes.
That's awesome. It's funny that you say like scarcity and like physical scarcity, because I feel like we think like scarcity mindset causes us to want to spend everything because we think that, we won't have enough or we won't get more. And so that's how like people start living in this paycheck to paycheck cycle, is this scarcity mindset. But then when you kind of flip it and you're like causing physical scarcity, then it can cause the opposite effect.
Yeah. And it's not to be confused with like fixed and growth mindsets, or like what Dr. Zweck came up with a while back. We're talking about addressing finite resources. So a lot of people that are living paycheck to paycheck, they're used to not having money, but in a weird kind of counterproductive way, where when they do have money, they want to use it. So they because it's going to run out anyway. And so we might as well kind of make hay while the sun shines. And that's the issue that we're addressing. We want people to say, okay, I have this money. What do I want it to do? The end. And if it means that you spend it all that day because you have a pressing bill and it's the only thing you can possibly afford, then that is what you do. But we take thousands and thousands thousands of people that have on average about $300 in their checking account when they start. And we're not talking about people that are living below the poverty line or out. I'm talking about people that make good money that carry around $300 in their checking account on average. It goes really high when their paycheck lands, and then it just precipitously drops.
Wow.
And it's because they have this pile of bills that's just waiting for money. And then as soon as that money comes in, the bills just suck it all away. And so we try and start to flip that around. Instead of being reactive, we're proactive. But the amazing thing is, someone with just $300 in their checking account, if you tell them, okay, only deal with that $300, what do you want your money to do? They'll immediately say, well, I'm actually going to get paid in 5 days. So, and you're like, no, don't do that. Well, in 5 days we'll do it, but we're not talking about that today. So what do you want your money to do, that $300? And again, without fail, they'll try and bring up the paycheck that's coming, because they're so used to thinking about when money does come, then this problem will go away. So we rein them back in again. And then we just say, okay, thank you for telling me again for the third time about your future paycheck.
You're getting paid.
We really want you just to focus on the $300. And so you get them there. And it's just the mind just habitually goes there for them. They're not like not able to, it's just they're in this kind of ingrained process. So you get them there with that $300 and you say, what does it need to do? They'll say, well, my gas tank is a little low. The fridge is a little empty. And there's this one bill that's actually kind of late already. I really need to pay it or I'll start getting late fees. So you say, boom, boom, boom. Okay, we're done. It's amazing how many people with that still only $300 in their checking account will then say, wow, that feels really good. For once, they're actually taking control and they're dictating like a good dictator. They're dictating what their money would do instead of just kind of waiting for something to explode on them where they're in panic mode. And so it's all about just orienting forward and dealing with that finite pile of cash. When the new check comes in, same exercise.
Yes.
We've talked about this concept before of being the CEO of your personal finances. And this kind of falls in line with that of you are giving your dollar bills a job and you need to delegate that. And in a lot of ways, that does put power and control, rightfully so, back into our hands rather than being victim to whatever might be happening with my finances.
Yeah, people are familiar with that. I mean, if you've ever tried to lose weight or, dial in your fitness or not finances, but food a little bit, it's the same thing. Everyone knows if you plan your meals, you do better. If you try and be a little more productive during the day, everyone knows that if you plan your day, it's that same principle that we see all over the place. I mean, heck, plan your career. Like people that really rise in their career, they have a plan, they have an idea. They aren't just waiting to see what happens with their boss or waiting to see with some job opening that comes up. They're proactively strategizing and figuring out, okay, this is what I'm going to do this, and there's this, and I should be on this project because it's big. They're planning. And we want to do the same thing with our money. We spend all of this time and effort and energy to make money. And then for some reason, once all that effort is converted into dollars, we suddenly just are like, oh, well, whatever. I'm just bad with money. It's horrible.
Oh my gosh, louder for the people in the back.
Yeah.
Please. Yes. Oh my gosh. A plan and a strategy for all that time and effort. And like most people don't even like their jobs anyway. So you're going to do all this stuff and then the fruits of your labor come in and then you're not
like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, let me get this straight. You went to school to get an education, to get this job. You went into debt to get an education, to get that job. You work around people that maybe you don't like. If you work at YNAB, you'll like our people, but you work around people that you don't like. You're doing a job that maybe isn't that fulfilling. All of that pain and suffering. And then when it's converted into money, you're like, oh, whatever. I mean, it's just bizarre.
You're like, oh, I have so much debt and a job I don't like. I have to treat myself at TJ Maxx.
Yeah. I do like that treat yourself thing from Parks and Rec. I can't get enough of that.
I do. I say that a lot.
It happens one day. So.
I mean, if you plan for it, have a treat yourself category and you just fill that up. Yeah, absolutely. The budgeting
give that dollar a job.
Yeah, the job is to do that. And that's perfectly okay. We actually tried really, really hard not to try and tell people what their money should do. We just say, decide. And we just repeat that over and over. Just decide, well, I want to do this. Should I do that? I think I spent too much on these shoes or this golf club or or a tool, whatever. Name your thing. Like we have so many stereotypical, like, oh my gosh, they wasted money. It's like, it doesn't matter. As long as you're being intentional about what you love, I mean, go for it. I'll never step into a Hobby Lobby and buy anything. Yes. But it doesn't, or Target. Target actually is a really popular one because in our Facebook group, you mentioned Target and people are like, oh yeah. Like throw pillows. Like you mentioned throw pillows and people are like, yeah, the throw pillow situation. But even then you have to just be like, hey, if you're doing some kind of retail therapy, like name the category retail therapy, like call it out and be like, yeah, I do therapy with shopping. Okay. At least you're calling it out and, not hiding from it. But just be intentional with it. It works really well.
Be aware of what you're doing with your spending. That's first. And then you can budget. And if you don't like what you're doing with your spending, then you can refine your budget to be how you want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, just the other day I was sitting there eating an ice cream from like a Ben and Jerry's and Julie's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just eating my feelings. She's like, yeah, okay. I mean, that's basically what it is. I had a long day at work. I'm stressed. I'm just going to eat my feelings. Yeah. At least you're calling it what it is. Let's not pretend.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I ate a spoonful of cookie dough last night.
Yeah, there you go.
In case we're confessing. Yeah. There it is.
I think that's the latter part of the podcast, confessions.
Okay. Yeah. Not there yet. Yeah. Okay. Yes, thanks, Jesse. Keeping us on track.
Well, then let's move on. Speaking about expenses, the second rule is to embrace your true expenses. What's all that about?
So if rule one is to take a finite pile of money and give every dollar a job, kind of like we're in the present moment only, and we're just dealing with like current fires even. Rule two is to look ahead to less frequent expenses that are coming up and break those up into manageable monthly amounts. So we talk about embracing your true expenses. It kind of means like get real about the idea that all of your expenses aren't these nice little tidy paycheck cycle timed things that land. So if you have, Christmas coming up, like Christmas does land every year, like same day, like it's never changed. And people are like, oh my gosh, that just really snuck up on me. Well, use that as an example. So we're at the time of this recording, a couple months out, right? Mm-hmm. If you said you wanted to spend $600 on Christmas and we have October, November, December to get there, I would say, well, you need to set aside $200 for this month, $200 for the next, $200 for the next. You're just making little sinking funds for all kinds of large, less frequent expenses that normally surprise you. A lot of people make good money, make plenty of money, and they look at only their monthly bills that come in nice, tidy little envelopes, and they say, I don't know why I'm not getting ahead. I clearly make more than my monthly bills. But then they don't think about the car tires that are going to blow out in 4 months, the HVAC unit that'll die 3 days after the warranty expires, the roof will need repairs, the dishwasher doesn't work that well. Like it just goes on and on. Like there's this, in accounting, they call it depreciation, where the asset value declines over time. And that is how life works. That is how cars work. That's how houses work. That's how so many things work. Things just wear out. And so all we're saying is we recognize that car tires do not last forever. And so we're going to set aside a little bit of money for the car. If you drive a 2002 Honda Civic, I can tell you it's like $100 a month. That'll keep you pretty steady, right? And you're just paying those bills as you go every month. Now, you're not actually paying them because those piles of money are building up over time. But the really cool thing about this is then you have a person that's going back to rule one, and they're saying, I'm going to give every dollar a job. And now they're debating like, should I go to sushi or should I go to Little Caesars, in light of the fact that their car tire will blow out. And they don't know when it will go, but they do know that they don't last forever. So they're like, should I go to sushi or Little Caesars? I'm also paying for car tires for the future. And then they maybe elect to go to Little Caesars, or might be better just not to go anywhere.
It might be better to eat cardboard.
I'm no knock against Little Caesars, but it is gross. I mean, like, I don't want to say anything bad about it, but you could eat the box and you'd be like, is this the pizza?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Did I get it?
All right. And it had cheese on it. So
that's the call, right?
Yeah.
They're saying like, it's kind of like future version of Jen walks back and is like, hey, current Jen, like, just so you know, like, I'm going to be on the side of a road and I'm going to have to call a tow truck and you better not leave me high and dry. And Jen's like, okay. I'll have the Little Caesars. That's cool. Like that's the negotiation that you're doing with yourself, or, if you're sharing finances, you're doing it with each other. There's like 4 people at the table. If you're with your partner, it's like current you guys and then future you guys, and future you guys are like, we're going to go on an anniversary trip. And you're like, you are? Yes, we are. And you better fund that thing because we don't want to go there. We don't want to put it on a card. We don't want to live chintzy. We want to live high for a couple of days, and we want to do it without having to worry about our money. And so the current versions of you are like, okay, yeah, that sounds pretty good. So we'll make a few adjustments here. That's
future you is
Future
so wise.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing. And of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic. oracle.com/strategic.
We know New Year's resolutions often don't stick. In fact, on average, they last around 30 days. So if saving money is on your 2024 resolution list, here's a foolproof way to stick to yours.
Switch your phone provider to Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for $15 a month.
For those of you paying close to $40 a month for just one phone line, this means a savings of $300 over the course of the year. We especially like Mint because all plans come with unlimited talk and text and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network.
To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/frugal. That's mintmobile.com/frugal. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/frugal. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
So wise.
Future Jen is intense.
Maybe I'm not the wisest because I'm on the side of the road, but
Yeah.
I think though, Jesse, you're identifying what can cause so many people to feel like they cannot get ahead in their budget or in their finances. We might even know how to create a budget, but it only includes my food, my shelter, and my bills, and not thinking about those other unexpected expenses that are what can keep us at a certain level and not able to move beyond. So whether or not we do make a decent amount of money, and I would say this is especially an issue for those who don't make a lot of money, and we've got a lot of listeners like that. I've been there at various points in life. So I think even having our sights on this when we don't bring in a lot of cash every month is a really helpful muscle to begin building of, okay, I know that there's going to be some sort of emergency situation where future me is really mad at the current me for not thinking about this. And being able to be more intentional and planful for those things can help us cross that barrier from being stuck really where we don't want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And most people, they've run out of real money and they have an emergency and they have to go to a card and put it on a bill. And it's always like when the month is normal, I'll be able to pay that bill off. When things kind of normalize, when things settle down, here I am talking about that in 2020. It's like, what a joke. But the idea of things kind of settling down and normalizing, there is no such thing as a normal month. You could go back to your credit card statement that you may be paying full and you're super responsible about it or whatever, or you can go to your bank account and you just can scan down the column, really old school like, and just look for a digit to pop out that makes the number a little bigger and find those and be like, was that normal? And without fail, every month you'll be like, oh yeah, we had that so-and-so's birthday. I had to grab him a gift that I'd forgotten about, or, oh, it was this. Every month is abnormal. And people just slowly tack on the debt because they have that little emergency, that little one-time thing. It's very rarely a massive medical emergency or something where you're like, this is clear. It's these death by 1,000 cuts. What's really cool about it is people will make the right, smart financial decision when they're presented with those trade-offs, to go back to rule one, it's like, do you want to be ready for car repair, or do you want to, I'll say blow it, or do you want to blow it on this or that impulse thing? Nobody says, I'm going to blow it. Once presented correctly with that information in context, people are smart with their money when they're given that decision at the right time, with the right context and the right implications tagged along with it.
Yeah, I love that. And I know I used to get really overwhelmed with the idea of multiple sinking funds, like for saving for multiple things.
Yeah.
So if somebody listening is like me, this is what I did to kind of help me wrap my brain around it. I needed to go with just one single sinking fund in a separate account. So I have like 3 checking accounts. I have the regular one I spend out of, I have my emergency fund, and then I have my sinking fund account. And it's like I have a list of things that I'm going to need in the future. So like we know our AC and our water heater is going to blow in the next few years. And we just replaced some windows that were really like bringing down or raising our electricity costs. Mm-hmm. So we calculated the cost of each of those and saved that amount for each in the sinking fund. And so when it came time, we chose to do the windows, before the other things broke. And so we just took that money out of one account. Yeah. But like, say my tires blow and I didn't pay for those, I'd already have that money in the sinking fund. I can still just take out of there and then just fund it with that cost later. I still have the money. It's like allocated, and it just makes more sense for me because it's not like I don't feel like I'm taking from the water heater fund to pay for the tires. I'm just taking for the future protection fund, as it would be. And so I don't feel as like overwhelmed by having a lot of different sinking funds.
Yeah. People use spreadsheets to track that. In our software, the software is built to basically have all of your money in one account and you never look at the account balance. It's not even a thing for you. So you just are looking at your HVAC category, and you can be more or less granular depending on how much you care about these things. So I don't think you should save up for the next tube of toothpaste, but there are like large material things where you could say, okay, this makes sense. So in your instance, if you had all these different sinking funds in YNAB, it would look like a long list of categories, each with a goal amount attached. Like I'm going to fund it $67.28 every month. Well, you just set that up one time and then you're kind of just clicking in on autopilot. If you do ever have to move money around, which happens, that's our third rule, to roll with the punches when new information comes up, then you're just still planning. You're just still going back to rule one and you're saying, you know what, the car tire went out a little quicker than we thought. So we're going to move it from here. We'll catch up. We'll be fine. And so it is kind of this overall future protection fund. I don't like the idea of just a savings fund, like no labels, because it tends to be a little bit of a revolving door. So people are like, I've got to save. I just actually heard on a podcast, I've got to save. So I'm going to save. And they're feeling really good. And then they raid the savings account 6 weeks later, and then they're feeling really bad. And so you want to put a job to that money to make sure that you're clear what it is for. That way, when you do go in and grab it, you don't feel guilty because you did need to buy a new computer or whatever. But you can also be clear, like, all right, here's why. Like we have some intention attached to this, and you can keep it all in one account, like you do. You can keep it. I mean, heck, we keep everything in one checking account. It's just like it's the most boring. I mean, every time you go to the bank, not that we go to the bank very often, but they would be so alarmed by the size of our account balance. It's because we're saving for a car in there. We're saving for house repairs. We're saving for Christmas. And after a while, thousands and thousands of dollars start to pile up. And the person at the bank's like, what are you doing? And you're like, what are you doing? That's what you would say to the teller.
Why is this shocking to you, Nancy?
Yeah. So don't give me that dirty look. And no, I don't want bill pay or overdraft protection. So
this is why I do everything online.
Yeah. But I like the idea of assigning that those savings accounts real jobs so that there's some specificity there. What's weird is most YNABers start to not need that third thing you mentioned, that emergency fund, that kind of just general, just in case. They find that they use it. Not that I advise against it, but like a 3-month deal is probably fine. They find that they've started to anticipate what used to be emergencies. Like a car tire blowing out's not an emergency because they're not infinitely useful. So it's just part of living. Like someone said, I had to go to the doctor. That was an emergency. It's like, well, no, you're alive. So come on.
Yeah.
We knew that was coming. But then there are the catastrophic, massive, this meets our insurance deductible type emergencies. Yeah, that's where they come into play.
I totally agree with you. A lot of people are saying things that are emergencies, but it's like you could have anticipated that for at least a few months ago.
Yeah. They're like, oh my gosh, like the baby came. And you're like, I'm no OBGYN, but I think I know 40 weeks is usually standard. So.
Yeah. You had to have noticed at least you even 3 months ago that something was happening down there. I don't know.
Yeah. It was months was never a thing for us. It was weeks. It was like, and I wasn't allowed to be like, hey, Julie, aren't you like week 22? She's like, no, I'm week 21 in 3 days. And I'm like, oh, sorry. I was not allowed to round up. I'm not allowed to round up on that. And I'm not allowed to round up on the baby's age. So if Brooks, our new one, if he's, like 5 months and 25 days, I can't be like, oh, he's 6 months old. She's like, no, he's not. He's 5 months old.
It's so important. Those months. You
don't want to age him too quick. Yeah.
Their developmental milestones are so diverse.
Yeah. She's like, no, he's not. He's developing just fine. Okay.
People think he's behind.
What a good example of you rolling with the punches.
Yeah, I'm like,
I'm bringing us back. Don't worry.
It's like I didn't know so many things about all these things, so I'm learning. Yeah,
that's amazing. I'm learning too. Number 3 on your rules is to roll with the punches. Can you tell us about that? Who's punching you?
Life. Yeah. Yeah. If you're alive, you're alive, like we're getting a little bit of sport. I don't know how sports oriented your group is, but I think everyone can understand this. Like if you were to watch, let's do basketball. You have like the coach reviews game film, becomes a master at that opponent, does all of this legwork. The team is like they're pretending to be the other opponent. They're mimicking it. They're scrimmaging. They're doing all this prep work. And that's like your budget. You're thinking about it. You're like, okay, what would you hear? What would you hear? And it's this perfectly laid plan. As soon as the game starts, if they're a good coach, then they're like, oh, well, let's change that a little bit. We thought they would use this guy. I don't even know. We thought they'd do this more.
No. Yeah. You're deep in it now. Like, keep going. Yeah,
it's like they or chess. Let's do chess.
That's probably more our speed, I guess.
Similar.
So they're like, they make a play. Like everyone goes in with a plan, and then you see how your opponent reacts, and you're like, all right, I'll do it a little different. That's budgeting. So for some reason, they'll set their budget and then they're like, oh, also I've started budgeting and I predict the future. Like that's kind of what they've decided is their thing. And they're like, they're clairvoyant. There's a really horrible movie with Sandra Bullock called Premonition, I think. Horrible movie. But it's this idea she could like see the future and then, okay, now you've got it. Or even worse, Nicolas Cage with another horrible movie called Next. Horrible movie.
Oh, good. Let's talk about all those.
I recommend that one because it is so bad. It's actually enjoyable. But the idea that you could see into the future and then you have this firm plan, nobody can do that. And so you have a beginning budgeter that's never gotten their head wrapped around any of this. And suddenly their condition for saying like, good job, you, is so astronomically high. This level of perfection is so high. It blows my mind. And so what I'm trying to say is, okay, you'll set your plan for the next 3 days. And then as soon as something new pops up, we're just going to change the plan. And so all rule 3 is, and I can't even believe we have to make it a rule, but the rule is change your plan as needed. Okay. Like if you're going on vacation soon, if you're so lucky, right? And you've planned to go to some sunny place and then it rains. Does that mean you say now vacations don't work? I mean, that would but that's what people do with budgeting. They're like, oh, budgeting doesn't work. I knew this wouldn't work. I listened to that one dumb guy on that one podcast and he was wrong. And it's unfortunate because what we're really trying to do is say, hey, you made a plan, just adjust as you go. Budgeting is not a thing. It is a process. So rule 3 is just going back to rule 1 and saying, hey, given the new information you have, you want to maybe give every dollar a job slightly differently than you did before. And you're still winning. You're like, this is you being successful. This is you doing it perfectly, if you need me to say that.
Recognizing that the future's not static, how often would you say, or how much of a pulse would you recommend somebody have on their budget?
Daily, when they're first starting. Daily. Yeah. As your skill level is low, meaning you don't have this habit, you haven't done like the whole Atomic Habits, James Clear thing or whatever. And so you're like, okay, I have no skill or low skill here. That means you need a high frequency of interaction with the budget. The other side of it is if you don't make a lot, where you don't have a lot of that wiggle room. Some people can they just make more money, so things just don't affect them as much. If you are one of those people that make a lot less, that also means you should be in the budget more because there's just less wiggle room, less room for error. The other one is if you're on a highly volatile income, you should be looking at it more often because there's more room for error there. So those three things, this is brand new to you, be in it daily. Make it like a part of your coffee thing, right? Sip your coffee, swipe through your budget, stare at it, see what happens. That works if you're tight. If money's tight, look at it more often. And if money is really volatile, like you're, I don't know, you're commission-based something or other, look at it more often.
Yeah,
awesome.
Self-employed.
The last rule that you have is age your money. And I feel like this is the most unique and interesting rule. And I would love to hear the story behind it.
So it's not a good story. I mean, it's not interesting is what I mean to say. So when Julie and I were first married, we were students, we were super young and super poor. And we were watching our money really closely. And I built this little spreadsheet that eventually became the YNAB software and all that. But at the time, it was just she and I just doing our thing. And we were on hourly pay working as students and our hours would fluctuate. And I didn't like going back to rule one and knowing how much we had to budget. I didn't like not knowing because my hours could be 25 or 35 and hers would be varied. And so I just had this idea. I took some money from our wedding money that we had actually been given. I took some money from there. I said, let's live off of this money and then we'll work for a month and we'll have money in our hands now for the next month. And Julie, because we were in our honeymoon phase, she was just like, cool. Like I could do anything wrong at that point. So she's like, yeah, that's fine. You are brilliant and good looking. And that is a good idea. So that's what we landed on. So it was really just, for me, it was a little bit of a money hack to be like, I don't want to be waiting to see what I will earn in order to be able to budget. I just want to know what I already have and budget money I'd earned a while ago. And so that turned into about 30 days. And then as we taught people were like this, instead of having a pile of bills waiting for money to arrive, it was flipped around and they had this pile of money. And then when a bill would come, people were like, this is awesome. I'll just pay it. And then you start putting stuff on auto pay. And then you've gotten out of that game. There's a total game that everyone plays, this huge game with all kinds of rules and orchestrations where timing their bills to their paychecks and doing this like song and dance and like sticky notes in places and just like, what about this? And then you're sharing money with a partner and it's like, well, did you spend that there? Oh, that was for this bill. It's this weird song and dance and it adds no value. I mean, if you think about the value of paying your electricity bill, it's just that the electricity stays on, but anything extra beyond the payment of the bill is just wasted effort. And so you think about all the effort people put into that song and dance. So we get rid of all of that. Then when a bill comes, it's just paid. And then suddenly people are like, my finances, the best thing they ever say is they'll write in and they'll say, my finances are super boring. Nothing exciting ever happens. Like everything just kind of seems pretty ho-hum. And you're like, you've arrived. Like you have arrived.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Life is still like coming at you with all kinds of things, but your money kind of like normalizes it and you're not living right on the edge. So when we talk about aging your money, we're really saying if you earned $1 yesterday, that's like a baby dollar. And you don't send babies out into the world. You protect them, you keep them close for a little while. When they're ready, you let them go. And when they're too old, you kick them out, right? Just to be clear.
Get out.
Get out. But at first, you don't do that. And that's what we want with our dollars. We want to have them like hang out for a while, 30 to 60 days. The cool thing about this is you get to a point where you're staring at, let's say, the beginning of November, and you're like, I have all of the money I would need for November, including funding those sinking funds from Rule 2. Like you're fully flushed out. And then you're like, okay, yeah, it's all here. And then you work in November, you earn that money, it refills, and then you're staring at December. And you're like, we're ready to roll. And we have money for Christmas, unless you finish Christmas shopping like in October, which makes you kind of weird, but people do that. So the idea of living ahead instead of behind, that paycheck to paycheck stress cycle is so bad. We were talking about sleeping, I think before we recorded maybe. I mean, like it literally steals sleep from you. It literally strains relationships where some benign comment from a spouse or partner about money suddenly becomes this big deal only because you're artificially stressed, not because it actually is a big deal. So there's so much there that you can get away from if you just live 30 to 60 days. The dollar you're spending, you earned 30 days ago, 40 days ago. It's wonderful. Now, to get there, just follow the first 3 rules. It will happen over time. There's no magic there. You just follow them. It takes people on average about 6 months to get there, with not doing anything extraordinary beyond just being really intentional and cutting expenses where they realized they didn't like them. And just working the system.
I like the example that you gave of how you did this when you were young, married, still respected. and because I think that we can often talk about budgeting and how you can have all these different funds and savings and it's just this thing and we can get it to work out so well. And then we have people who are not making a lot of money and this can feel really overwhelming or maybe even depleting to be like, that's not my reality. But to hear your example of how you did this, even when you weren't making a lot, even when you were hourly, part-time. I mean, of course, it had something to do with gifts that had been received, but there are other ways of going about that. Yeah. I mean, input, side hustle, living in an environment well below what you're bringing in, whether that means needing to move so that your living expenses are less, right? There's some ways of getting creative, but I think that I just want to highlight what you mentioned there, that this is possible even if you're not making 6 figures.
Oh, yeah.
And some of these concepts and the framework of it, we can put into place regardless of where we may find ourselves currently in our current financial circumstances. Of course, the goal is always, how can we bring in more so that we're not stuck in that place?
Every one of these rules I came up with at my poorest. And I say poor meaning financially. So I had all kinds of family structure and support that I'll be forever grateful for, that you can't even price tag at all. But we lived in an apartment that cost $350 a month. And
so that was 80 years ago.
That was a long time ago. Yeah. I age well, actually, but, it was early 2000 and it was a junky. I mean, it was a horrible apartment. So we could have spent more, or I mean, we could have lived somewhere else that was more expensive, but, we had respiratory issues while we lived there. Like, I think there was stuff in the walls. It was bad, but we lived there for a year. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't own a car for the first little while. We didn't own a computer for the first little while. I would use computers on campus. I mean, we were simple students in the sense that we had like one objective, like we got to get through school. And Julie was making $11 an hour. I was making, I think 10.50 or something. She was full-time at the end, working in social work where they don't pay you. So she's full-time making $11 an hour. And we were like, okay, we can make this work. We actually saved money. But we lived cheap. Little Caesars was a big deal back then, and maybe that's why I have PTSD. Yeah. So but like once a month, we're like, oh, sweet. We get that $5 hot and ready. And it was awesome. So those rules, they aren't just like pick and choose because your situation is tight. I would say, no. Those rules came about and were used to great effect in my situation that was the tightest. Now, I make more money, thankfully. I feed way more people, not necessarily thankfully. A lot more bills. All of that is so much more expensive, but the rules still are working. It's about being super intentional. And like we went back, all that effort you put into earning money, that $11 an hour that Julie was working toward, we're going to waste that when, she's having to go to this place she doesn't really like to make a pittance. When we're supposed to waste it then? I don't think so. No way. Quite the opposite, right? So it works at every income level.
Yeah. Well said. Man. You know what else works? And we never get tired of it.
At every income level.
The bill of the week.
It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the bill of the week.
Jesse, every week we have a listener or guest submit their bill of the week for us to share. It is your turn. Do you have a bill for us?
I was going to use watching the trailer of the sequel of Bill and Ted's. I was like, that could work. But
yes.
I only watched the trailer and I thought that's about enough of that. But my favorite bill that has just started becoming my favorite is my electricity bill. So I got it 2 weeks ago. It was $16.42. And that's not too shabby.
No,
especially in the
that's
summer.
like 3 hot and readies.
Yeah, 3 pizzas. Everything is in pizzas at our house as far as currencies.
As it should be.
Yeah, so
that's how I budget.
Yeah, so it was my first bill that I received after I had paid a whole lot of money for a fancy solar system. So it was not for financial reasons like, oh, this makes sense. I just really liked the idea of the solar, and like so many other parts of it appealed to me besides the long payback period. So I didn't finance it or anything. I saved up for it. I got all those panels on. And then I became obsessed with our power consumption at that point. So I can tell you, like, our base house rate's 0.6 kilowatts an hour. Like, it just does that. If the oven's on, I know that. If like, it's gotten better, but Julie was like, is this going to be a thing now forever where you're on your phone and being like, what is calling
You're
Julie?
like
What are you doing?
singular.
What are you doing over there? Is there? Oh, you're baking bread. Well, I apologize, and that's totally okay.
Yeah. I thought maybe you were blow drying your hair, which that would have been a no-go.
Yeah, so it was super fun. But yeah, that's my favorite bill. It's been fun to see like this magic, and I'm not like even a big environmentalist, right? Like, but it did feel like magic. It was like, oh my gosh, the sun, you know. Who would have thought? This
is what you can look forward to when your budget becomes boring. Yeah. You get super into electricity consumption.
It's really bad. Really bad.
Wow, Jesse, thank you.
Yeah. If your life has become all about your energy consumption and you want to tell us about it, please visit frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill and leave us your bill. Or maybe your life is about something else, like water consumption or air.
Yeah.
Whatever. We'll play your bill. Yeah.
Just some sort of bill.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Martine Hackett, and I'm hosting the second season of Untold Stories, Life with a Severe Autoimmune Condition, a production from Ruby Studio in partnership with Argenix, sharing real stories of MG, CIDP, and other autoimmune conditions. We hope to share inspiration and educate the larger community about these severe and often overlooked conditions.
I can't fix this. I can't cure this. And, I'll take my treatment day by day, but I want to try to be engaged, be involved, or be as helpful as I feel I can with the limitations I have of working full time to children. So I participate in market research to provide information to hopefully benefit others, because it's a small margin of people that have the myasthenia, but then to get pregnant, it's an even more narrow margin. And you can't ever have too much information as an epidemiologist.
Yeah, exactly, right? Listen to Untold Stories, Life with a Severe Autoimmune Condition on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Shopping for humans is hard. Shopping for your dog is easy, thanks to Bark. Every month, we deliver toys and treats just for your dog. They deserve to be spoiled anyway. At Bark, we send your dog a whole new collection of toys and treats made just for them every single month. Whether it's our fun plush toys from BarkBox or our ultra tough toys from Super Chewer, we give your dog exactly what they want. For a limited time, we'll double your first box for free. To get your free upgrade, go to barkbox.com/iHeart.
Now it's time for
the lightning round. We try not to yell so much.
I want to plug the counselor thing, because I went to a counselor for 5 years. It was awesome.
Yes.
And people are like, there's a stigma. I think it's going away, but man, I started going to see her, and suddenly it was like my back pain went away. Weird. And I was so nice to be able to just unload on someone who's just kind of like, cool. Did you know this? And you're like, no, I didn't. It was
yes,
awesome.
That's how they do it.
Yeah, highly recommended. It's for I think it makes you. I don't know if you're like this, like, I don't know, go hard, like money hungry, performance is everything. Even then, you're like, you should go see a therapist. Like they will bring you they will up your game wherever you're at. Like you'll see it increase. So anyway, I didn't mean to extend the.
No,
sponsor,
you're good.
but
I'm a counselor myself, so I can't say
Great.
enough about it. Yeah, invoice them.
For that little extra.
Thanks, Jesse, for sharing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always good to just continue to chip away at the stigma that can surround seeking help and knowing that there is help out there that can be affordable and can help us. But we're whole people. I mean, I know that we really focus in on finances, but it does affect us physically and relationally and emotionally and financially. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about caring for our whole person.
That's perfect.
Absolutely. All right. So in this lightning round, we are going to get into our latest budgeting flubs and how we recovered from them. So Jesse, as our guest, we'll allow you to go first because yours will probably be the shortest.
I was hoping I could go last to kind of get a read of the room a little bit to figure out what kind of a flub we're looking for. So
that's why you're going first.
Yeah. I've taken over the Costco run for the family because like the baby came, so he's kind of a priority. And so I'm like, I'll do the Costco run. So Tuesday's my day. And this is embarrassing, but I didn't know how much we had spent when I walked out and then came home. And Julie was like, she goes, man, you got a lot. And I was like, now to be clear, like I do her list. Like we have a synced up note, on our phone. And I'm like, update the note. She gets it all updated. And then it's just like this long, and it's nerve wracking because she might say something like chicken. And I'm like, organic, boneless, skinless, organic tenderloins. Like, what are we doing here? So we're working on like full communication. Chicken. Like how is this, she's like, oh, I really wanted this kind. And she's a phenomenal cook, which means her standard of like what she wants is up there. So I'm already nervous. And then she's like, well, how much was it? And I couldn't even tell her. I'm like, I did not notice the cost.
That's one of those zone out moments.
Yeah. I was like, I was at Costco, but was I there? Like the guy's like, here's your card. I'm like, oh, okay. And I didn't even like that was yesterday. So I'm giving you there's some recency bias there, but I was pretty bothered by the fact that like I just dropped, and I'm telling you, like at our family size, we have 7 kids with 2, like some teenagers in there that eat like 3 people's worth each. And so we're not talking about like, oh, he spent $90 and didn't realize it. I only wish. I can't get out of there for less than 200. Like
no. No one can get out of Costco under 200.
Like, I'll just go in and get some milk. It's like, no, you won't.
You'll get
you
7
walk out
gallons.
like with like a flat screen TV on one shoulder and then like milk on the other side.
Yeah, so, and socks and underwear for
target.
The year.
Costco is your target, man.
I'm like, do you guys have throw pillows here? Because anyway.
No, but we do have swing sets.
Yeah, and there were like Christmas full bore Christmas going on at like. I mean, full on. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, if we didn't have a reminder already through our budget and funding it monthly, everybody, we would have it if we went to Costco.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I didn't even realize it. So I'm embarrassed by that. I don't know.
You'll listen to the cashier a little bit more closely now. That is your total comes to.
So that you can be aware of the spending just a little earlier.
A little. I mean,
and live in that.
You're supposed to put it on your phone. We have the app. You're supposed to put it on your phone, record it in the moment. It knows you're at Costco and it's like, hey, cool. Costco, normally groceries, right? Like it does all this fancy stuff. I was totally spaced out. I think, yeah. Anyway, that was a flub.
Well, Jesse, you're going to look great next to me. Your number one rule was resonating with me a lot. And when you were talking about children are good at this, children are good at recognizing if you can't have this, then you can have this. So I just bought a house. Well, not just me, my husband and I, we together collectively bought a house. And I have had in my mind, I just haven't really thought about it a ton. I mean, we did set a lot of money aside. I mean, first of all, just buying a house is expensive beyond the down payment. but then also set some more money aside knowing that we want to do some renovations. But I didn't fully think through how much each renovation that I want to do is going to cost and the timing of it. And I'm just kind of have in my head, like, I want to do it all. I want to do it all right now. And that's just not the reality. I'm learning when you own a house. We used to live in a camper and I kind of could have it all. It's like, yeah, everything costs $10. Done. The whole thing's renovated. And so I am slowly coming to grips with the fact that I got new ceiling fans and I will probably not be able to have a kitchen for a couple of years. Yeah. This kitchen is a dumpster fire, by the way. It is functional. So how I'm coping / recovering with that is really an adjustment in my perspective of, okay, I'm not going to take out a loan for these renovations. We do want to cash flow them. So I recognize that that's like a little bit next level, but it's where we're at as frugal friends over here. So I am learning what I can do to make it a little bit more livable at where we're at right now for very minimal cost until we can get to the point of actually paying for these bigger renovations out of pocket. So luckily it has not thrown me into debt, but it is one of those kind of wake up calls of, oh, I can't do it all at once. And if I do this one thing, then that takes this other thing out of the mix. So we might just have to get mini splits instead of a new kitchen next. And, I'll paint the walls and be happy with it.
I like it. Yeah. No debt on kitchen renos. No way. Mm-mm.
Yes. No.
Even dumpster fires.
One thing at a time.
Yeah.
Even on
it is a dumpster fire.
Jen can tell you it
needs to be set on fire. So
we threw out a lot of it already. A lot of it is in the dumpster. The rest of it is on fire.
Yeah. It's so ugly it wouldn't light on fire if you tried. So. All right. Well, that's all we have today.
Yeah,
Jen's perfect.
I'm fine. No. So Travis has been off of work for the last couple weeks. He's works in the airline industry as a mechanic. And so they gave him a voluntary leave several times this year. He's in literally his third month off this year. And he's taking half pay. And I am in my slow season in my business. So I have like my income is natural ebbs and flows. And I'm in a natural, like, I don't know what the ebb and what the flow is, but I'm in the lower one.
Yeah.
But you're ebbing right now.
I didn't change our budget to reflect that. I kept it as it was. And then I realized, oh, that's not our income.
You got to roll with that.
Right.
Punch.
And which we have the money that it's like not affecting us this month. But next month it will. So I didn't cut my expenses in half or, cut them like I should have. I just totally went straight over my head. Then
how are you recovering?
Yeah. What's the first that's going to go on the expenses?
I probably Kai. He's probably
Kai's her son.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, Kai. Yeah.
He's expensive.
It's the new type of soy.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, we haven't made November's budget yet, but I think we're just gonna probably not eat out. Probably just living on bare bones stuff just for 1 month.
Yeah.
I'm in a sugar detox right now, so I can't think about that. I can't think about November right now. My mind is here
sugar
now.
detox and not eating out is probably a good combo if you were to do it.
Right. I'm not eating out right now anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not that bad.
When we ask people how they paid off debt or how they got ahead, and we never prescribe like you shouldn't eat out. We never say that. But everyone, without fail, without exception, they will say they cut eating out to free up money. So it usually is the first
big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not maybe the largest sum of money, but it can save you a whole lot more than just cutting out buying coffee.
Yeah.
It can eat up a good chunk of that monthly budget.
Yeah, it's not large, but we call it squishy. It's a squishy category. Like there's some room there.
I like that.
Yeah.
And it makes it sound
kind of
gross.
like it. It kind of makes me feel weird.
Yeah,
though.
you're like, or eating out. It's like, why don't you just call it squishy category and see how appetizing that sounds.
See how often you do it.
Squishy.
Get squished.
And if all else fails, we'll turn the lights off for a whole month.
Yeah.
See how that goes. Conserve energy.
Jesse, thanks so much for coming on the show to talk with us about budgets. Where can people find more about you? What's up next for YNAB? What do you want to say?
People can find us at youneedabudget.com. So we're there always. The best thing to do, if I were to recommend one thing for people, it would be to take one of our 20-minute workshops. They're fast. They're live. You can ask questions. They're not recorded. There's a real teacher there. You can test them and say this random word. They'll say it like it's live. We've had that happen. And they succinctly tell you like, okay, Jesse's 4 rules that you heard on this in kind of a really long-winded way. They'll tell it to you very succinctly, and then they'll show you in the software how that's implemented. And so it's kind of like theory and then practice in 20 minutes. And it is just well worth the time. It's a little bit of a different way to think about money. And so we want to get that learning happening fast, but do the workshop. They're free. You don't have to sign up or do anything like that. You just go in and jump on. And I think we run about 150 a week. So like there's one that'll hit your schedule.
Wow.
So
all right.
That's great.
Sweet. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Jesse. And we will hope to see you sometime when people are seeing each other again.
Yeah, but this was quite nice. Just this remote video thing is as good as it can get right now.
Sweet.
So
sweet.
Yeah.
Didn't have to smell each other's coffee breath.
Absolutely.
So true.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jesse. Well, that was fun.
Yes. Jesse is so cool.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of get it now a little bit more why there's such a cult following.
Yes. It's funny to think of cult followings in personal finance. That seems like it shouldn't happen. But now the more I think about it, there's a lot of them.
Yeah. It's how deep into the spreadsheets you can get.
How deep can you get into the spreadsheets?
I mean, you said it yourself. There's so many tabs so many sums sheets that you can do. So I'm going to stop because it's going to go to a dark place. Yep. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. We want to thank you for your kind reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. Like this one comes from McKean2. Informative and makes me giggle. It happens to be 5 stars because why not when it's informative and makes you giggle? Great podcast, which has me think differently about my spending habits and be more thoughtful in my spending. The girls are great fun to listen to, and I've definitely saved money from their tips, tricks, and wisdom. Thanks, Jen and Jill.
You're
welcome
for your kind words.
You're welcome and thank you.
Yes. We also want to thank our friends who share these episodes on social media. It's super helpful for spreading the word. And so when you share our latest episode on Facebook or Instagram and tag us in it, then we will see it and we will submit you into our monthly drawing. We give away a copy of the Frugal Friends workbook for every 5 tags and reviews we get every month.
So keep leaving us reviews on iTunes or Stitcher and send us a screenshot of that review to frugalfriendspodcast@gmail.com. And of course, still tag us on social.
Absolutely. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Frugal Friends is produced, edited, and mixed by Eric Sirianni.
Welcome to the after show, Jesse.
Are we asking the questions in the after show?
Yeah, we're going to ask the questions in the after
fun.
show.
Thanks for sticking around, Jesse.
Yeah,
this is when like 10% of our listeners are still present.
It's just a great way to pad the episode with more. So we have a few questions from our Frugal Friends community on Facebook, which I'm sure 10% of the people in that group don't actually know we have a podcast. I know that for a fact.
It's so funny. People will talk about the podcast, and then without fail, there's always somebody who's like, what's the podcast you listen to?
What podcast are you listening
You're
to?
literally in a group for this podcast.
The banner is
funny.
our logo.
Yeah.
Podcast
I think
on it.
really it's indicative of how good our name is that people just want
They're
frugal
like,
friends.
I want frugal friends. This sounds good.
I'm okay with that.
It's like a bunch of old people that are like, I'm going to friend this group, but they don't even know what they're doing. They're just clicking things. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And we know they're not listening right now, so we can say that. All right. A few questions. Somebody wants to know, besides your own book, do you have any other book recommendations?
Oh, what genre? Like what? Can they narrow it down for me?
I guess maybe personal finance.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you have another one that sticks out, maybe?
Personal finance, if you were to give one to a kid, like you were like, oh, my kid's old enough, they should learn something, but they won't listen to me and read my book. Maybe it's it bothers you that they won't read your own book. But The Wealthy Barber is good for like a 14-year-old, 13-year-old. Richest Man in Babylon is The Wealthy Barber, but made to, older style fable. I like that one a lot. And then Vicki Robbins, Your Money or Your Life, is a really good deal on the whole, life and money conversion that we kind of hit on a little bit in the show. That one's a mind shifter that I like quite a bit. Really good business book though. The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Really good.
Oh, why that one? What's your favorite thing about that?
There's a lot of HR stuff, like people management in there that is just like, just makes sense. Like you hear it and you think, why didn't I just think of that naturally? Because it's so obviously the right idea. Especially the second half of the book. The first half is his story. And the second half is where he just like pounds you with just knowledge bombs. I really like that. Anything by Nassim Taleb. He's like a philosopher. His book, Anti-Fragile. I really, really like that one.
Nice.
Yeah. So I have a lot. I have a whole Cal Newport's Deep Work.
Yes.
So good. Like it's so good. And then he has a more consumer facing like digital minimalism that I like, but Deep Work is the better book.
I love that one. What do you think is the hardest debt to pay off?
Hardest debt to pay off. The last one. Is that a trick question?
Yeah.
I
think the first one. I feel like it's the first one.
Yeah, maybe like getting over the hump would be that. It's hard sometimes to justify paying off a really low rate student loan, for instance, because it's just so cheap. The money's just so cheap. So that one, it might be harder to justify, like sending the money off to do that. For some people paying off their mortgage, they like to think they're getting really fancy and think, oh, but if I just invest the difference, I'll make money. But no one actually invests the difference. They just say that they would theoretically do that. So you can kind of talk yourself out of that one. But yeah, I would say either first or last. I like that. I like first too.
Yes. Here's a good one. Why should someone pay for a budgeting app?
Oh yeah.
When they could use a free one like Mint?
Mint. I've been citing movies, like pretty low grade quality movies. So I'll do another one. Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where they have the future seers and they stop crime before it happens. That's like YNAB. YNAB like stops the crime from happening because you're proactive. Mint is like any standard cookie cutter blueprint CSI episode that always starts with a dead body. And then the rest of the episode is everyone being like, how did the guy die? What happened? Oh, interesting. And you're like, well, could we stop the deaths? Maybe. So Mint, every month, your finances, you have a dead body, and Mint tells you the body is there, awkward, in your living room. And then you blame your spouse for it. You're like, well, it was you. Like, it was you did it. Like everybody knows that. It's like, whoa. And then what do they do when they see Mint in like the fancy charts? They'll be like, oh man, we shouldn't have eaten out so much. Well, okay, water under the bridge. But what are you doing now? So also, if you like being the product where your data is, where you are sold, that's also one other, but it is not free. And this is like a totally separate thing from budgeting. Facebook isn't free. Mint isn't free. Nothing is free. And so you pay us $84 a year, and we will never, ever, ever, ever sell your data. And we have all kinds of locks and keys around it internally. That is it's like sacred. So you're paying $84 a year to a company to know that that is the only way they make money. And there's some peace of mind there. So also it works way better than Mint. Like, you really want a corpse every month? I don't think so.
Yeah. I don't love Mint as a budgeting app.
It's good for like overall view. You can see, like, oh, this is pretty. It's good to make you feel like you're doing something.
Yeah. But
it doesn't change
the 30
behavior.
minutes it takes to connect all your accounts to Mint and see a nice graph.
Yeah.
Makes you feel like you're doing something good.
We're going after behavior change. Like, we really want people to change what they're doing. So it takes a little effort.
Yeah. Understand it more, be more involved. Yeah.
Okay. Last question. What's something fun people should know about you, but they don't?
Oh, geez. I already talked about the solar panels. I mean, geez, what else is there?
I said something fun.
Oh.
Fun.
Well played. Yeah, and I was going to say 7 kids, but you just retort the same way. You'd be like, I said fun. Fun.
Yeah, but I like spreadsheets.
It's okay.
I have a rooster.
Oh, that is fun.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, got you. His name's Ronaldo. I have to use a special mic because he'll crow and then he'll be picked up on. So I have to use like one that's really, but I bought 8 hens from the feed store. And then I realized 4 months later, like one of the hens was on steroids. And then I realized a month after that hen was a dude and his name is Ronaldo. And so I actually bought 7 hens and a dude, and he's awesome. He's super chill. He doesn't attack anyone. Faye, my 4-year-old, she loves him. He's almost as tall as she is. Like, they get big.
Oh my God.
And he's so pretty. He has these pretty green feathers in the back, and he's super chill. He backs up whenever I come in. He's not aggressive at all, at least so far. He always lets all the ladies go to the food first, and he's just kind of looking around. Like, he's a gentleman,
Yes.
Wow.
So that's been
Has
super
he
fun.
impregnated any of them yet?
Not that we've discovered. They just started laying eggs because we did the whole COVID chicken run that happened. Like, it was a real thing. I don't know if you all tried to buy
plants and chickens.
gardening.
Everyone got deep into it.
Everything. Like, all these like boutique sourdough, firms are like, what is going on? We, like, can you only imagine? So we did that for the, part of our COVID celebration, and it's been super fun, but they just started laying eggs like a month or 2 ago, and it's magic. It's just absolute magic. Love it.
Okay.
Ronaldo.
So it is fun.
That appeases me.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah.
There you go.
It is fun.
That will do.
Okay.
So, and cut.
All right.
That'll do.
Bring home Napoleon,
Destiny has brought me here.
the action epic from acclaimed director Ridley Scott.
What is your name?
Napoleon. You are the greatest leader in the history of the world.
Witness the rise
You are nothing without me.
of the legend. Starring Academy Award winner Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby.
I'm the first to admit when I make a mistake. I simply never do.
Napoleon. Buy or rent on digital now. Rated R.
Need an easy button to feed your baby? Baby Brezza's Formula Pro Advanced makes a perfectly mixed warm formula bottle automatically at the push of a button. No air bubbles, no fuss. Literally, choose your temp, select your ounces, push start, and you're done. Works with virtually all formulas and bottles. Say goodbye to the 3 a.m. feeding chaos and hello to this revolutionary stress-free solution. Raising a baby is hard enough. Let Baby Brezza make feeding a breeze. Get your Formula Pro Advanced at babybrezza.com.